Alrighty, everybody, it is currently Saturday, December 6th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from my lonely otaku cave. And this episode, I don't even know if you could call this an episode. It's just gonna be like a short little thing. Um, but it's just something that I've been thinking about a little bit lately. I've been getting a lot of, I don't know, TikTok is, I think it's trying to turn me into like a, I don't know. Like we talked about with the pipe bomb guy, I think they're trying to turn me into that guy. I think they're trying to MK Ultra me, Ted Kaczynski my ass, because I've been getting a lot of like, I don't know how to describe it. I guess like gender war TikToks. And to be fair, I do watch them a lot because I'm not better than anyone else. I'm like, I'll hate watch them. I'll hate watch them shit. So maybe that's why I've been getting a lot of it lately. But a lot of it is focused around the idea of young men not asking women out anymore. And I was obviously when I'm watching these TikToks, I'm like just full like chud mode, like seething, like you don't understand. Like that's that's kind of the that's kind of the mode I'm in when I'm watching these TikToks. But I was playing Minecraft, having a nice, relaxing Minecraft playthrough, and I was just thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I'm not being an emotional pussy right now. I'm actually thinking rationally about the situation. And so I was just like, fuck it. I'll just come on here and talk about it. Not really for any to help anyone, right? I don't think anyone listening to this, if anyone even is listening to this, needs help with that. I don't think that's who my viewer base is, but if you are, I mean, cool. I hope this helps you. It's not going to help you actually, but maybe mentally you'll calm down or feel better about the situation. Um, but yeah, so the question is, or the topic of discussion is, young men not asking women out anymore. And I think one of the reasons it's like such a contentious thing is because it is a big deal, right? It is a big deal that a large percentage of young men are not in relationships, have never been in a relationship. Um, Probably a pretty decent percentage of young women, maybe not as high of a percentage, but a decent percentage of young women. And I, that is a big deal. You know what I mean? That's a massive part of human life. Some would argue it's the biggest part of human life, right? Having a romantic and then a sexual relationship with another person, having kids, raising a family, all that stuff. A lot of people would argue that's the biggest component in living a full life. And really, if you want to if you want to look at it in a certain way, having kids is such a deep biological urge for both young men and women, that it 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 causes such a strong emotional reaction in people, right? It's almost like food, right? It's like the only things that your body wants biologically, or the only things that are more important to the survival of the human race is like food and water, right? Like those are really the only things that are more important than having kids and continuing on the legacy of the human race. And so I get why it's such a contentious issue and why people get so angry about it. And just maybe not even necessarily angry, but so emotionally worked up about it. Once again, right there with you. right, right there with you. Um, and like I said, I think I'm a qualified person to talk about it. My qualifications are I'm a kissless, hugless virgin. Those are the qualifications right there. So, if you wanted to know what they were, if you wanted to get an idea of who's talking about this issue, that's what it is. So, there's definitely going to be bias in what I say. Obviously, there is. I don't people that are like, I'm taking an unbiased approach. It's like, no, you're not. You can't. You're incapable. Your mind is incapable of comprehending an experience without bias. It can't happen. And so that's going to be my bias heading into this. But I think it'll be calm and rational. I hope by the end of this, I'm not full Alex Jones banging the table and screaming. I hope that's not what's going on by the end of this. Although there's a very good chance. There's a very good chance that this is inevitably what that devolves into. I'd say 30 to 40%. It's a pretty good chance. And so I was just thinking about it, and I don't even know why I was thinking about it. I was listening to Tim Dillon and playing Minecraft, which you want to talk about a fucking juxtaposition, and I just started thinking about it, and so I paused the Timmy D to think about it. Um, and I think kind of the first conclusion that I came to, which is the ultimate conclusion, is that women said they didn't like being approached, right? And there obviously there's a spectrum in there, right? Where women are like, I don't want to be approached at all. And I think at that point, it's time to start munching box. It's time to accept the reality of your, you know what I mean, human experience, and accept the fact that you're probably a lesbian, right? Same with if you're a dude. If you were a dude and you were like, I don't want any woman to approach me ever, I'd be like, go suck a fucking cock. Like, I don't know. What do you want? And then I think the middle of that spectrum, and where most women fall, right, especially the women who are kind of saying these things, and what they said is they don't want to be approached by creeps, right? And I think young men looked at that and they were like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to be creepy? Does it mean to go up to a woman and just it clearly touching a woman is creepy. I already know that. But like what else about the interaction with a woman makes it a creepy interaction? Is it talking about sexual stuff? Is it getting all in her face? What is it? What is the thing that makes these interactions creepy? And I think pretty quickly, honestly, young men realized what makes an cold interaction with a woman, right, where you just walk up to a woman and start talking to her, what makes that creepy, it's not the words that come out of your mouth. Maybe slightly, and maybe it's slightly the way you physically approach the situation with eye contact and proximity and things like that. But ultimately, the thing that makes an interaction with a woman creepy is whether you're attractive or not. And once again, like I said, if you want to be mad at me and say I'm, an incel loser, biased, whatever, you can say that. But I think that's the truth of the situation. I think most young men have have come to that conclusion, right? That if you're unattractive, 9 times out of 10, the situation is going to be viewed as creepy. And I know another thing that men like to bring up in this situation, and I'll go after the men too, because there is a little bit of that, especially in the counter arguments that they pose to these women. The One of the things they talk about is false allegations. And to me, when you talk about false allegations in terms of like hitting on a woman, that's like talking about like incest with abortion. It's like, okay, man, yeah, I guess, like I guess so. It's not like if someone was to talk about incest when it comes to abortion, I would stop having a conversation with that person, right? If I was talking to a man about um the lack of young men approaching women and he brought up false allegations, I would cease conversation with that person post haste, because it's it's not something that I've ever worried about, I'll say. And I don't think, as mean as women can be, and as cruel sometimes, especially with like the social talk and all that, as cruel as they can be, I think that's a bridge too far, even for like the meanest of bitches. I think even the meanest, most cruel of women would not falsely accuse a man in any real significant way of an actual crime, right? I don't think that would happen just from a conversation, right? I don't believe that's true. I'm sure it has happened, but what I'm saying is we're talking about 1 in 10,000, 1 in 1 million, even for this particular situation of like being at a bar or whatever and going up to a woman and speaking with her. It's not going to happen, right? But what I think will happen, right, especially if you're an unattractive man like myself, right? So, once again, maybe biased, definitely biased, but what almost certainly will happen if you're an unattractive man is the woman will go, most likely, that guy was creepy, right? That's what she'll say. It's not it's not an accusation. It's not a life ruining allegation or whatever. It's not anything like that. But what it is it's a social condemnation. And to be socially condemned, especially when you're young, right? When you're in school and you're seeing these people every day, and like if you go to a college like me and your kind of life is based around these people or is greatly affected by these people, is that is devastating. That is horrible, right? It's like if I was like 15 or 16 and I was approaching women, which I wasn't, I wasn't even doing it then, even with my full, dumb puberty mind, I wasn't doing it then. But if I was, and a woman, I heard that women thought I was creepy, I would 100% have taken my own life. There's zero question about that. I would have pulled the trigger. Literally would have pulled the trigger. There is not a doubt in my mind that I would be alive right now if when I was like 15 or 16 or like really anywhere in high school and maybe even now, probably, that if women thought I was creepy, I wouldn't take my own life. That I would 100% do that. And even if I didn't, the the idea that people, specifically women, right, physically vulnerable people in our society, obviously, would think that I'm creepy or that I would do anything like that. That idea is so repulsive to me. It's so heinous that that could be my day-to-day existence, that I would rather be viewed as a weird, lonely loser than as a creep, right? 100% I would. There is 10 times out of 10. And I I am viewed as that, right? I don't really talk to anyone. I'm not like a super social dude at my school or whatever. And so they do probably view me as a loser. And that is fine by me because I would way rather be viewed as that than as a weird, creepy guy. I, I'm fine with being a loser, okay? Is what it is. It's not great. There's better things you can be viewed as. But like I said, there's things that are significantly worse that you could be viewed as. And so I think it's like a resignation. It's just like I, I don't know. I'm trying to find the best analogy I can for it, right? It's like would you rather be dead or have to wear a diaper all day, right? Which of those two things would you rather be? Would you rather be walking around and have people throw eggs at you, or would you rather quietly just be like pissing in your diaper in fucking, calculus class or whatever? Which of those two things would you rather choose? Right? And I think that adequately describes in a pretty understandable analogy the difference between those two things, right? Being a loser, it's benign. It's people just look at you and go, loser. Probably not even that. They probably don't even acknowledge your existence, right? You're not even a fly on the wall. You're like a little speck of paint that's been chipped off that maybe one person notices every now and again. That's kind of what being a loser is. And that's preferable to being a big stinky fucking shit stain, right? Right across the wall. It's better to be a paint chip on the wall than a swastika drawn in poop. Right? It's better. It's better to exist at as that than as the other thing. And so I think it's a big thing that I don't think people talk about enough, and I don't think that women quite understand about it. Is that I'd just rather be viewed as just a benign freckle than this big tumor that's gonna kill you. I would rather be viewed as that. And so I think that's a thing about it that people really just don't understand. It's not the idea that I'm scared of being falsely accused or that I think people are that I'm gonna have to wear the scarlet letter or whatever. It's none of that. It's just the general view of me will be a thing that I believe is so heinous that I don't think I could take it. Right? like I said, I literally do not think I could take it. And I'm a roach, dude. I am a human cockroach. I can take a lot. I can take a lot of punishment. I don't think I could take that. And so I'd rather be viewed as just a loser who doesn't talk to anyone and keeps his head down than as a creep. And yeah, I think that's kind of one of the ultimate conclusions that I came to. And so I'll kind of tie that back to the first thing I said, which is being a creep is being ugly. That's what it is. I when people try to argue that, I'm like, okay, man, yeah, you're right, 100% right. Women definitely don't value looks. They're perfect angels, right? They're perfect altruistic angels who don't value looks. At least socially, where the general consensus is that men are pigs and that we do value looks a hell of a lot, right? And kind of the view around women is that no, they don't. And I don't mean to sound like a full like red pill or black pill, I guess, whatever, whichever pill it is. I don't mean to sound like one of those guys, but it's the truth. It's the truth that women value looks. To pretend that it's not true is crazy. Now maybe they don't value them in the same way that men do, right? I do think there is. It's women are they're concerned, right, a lot more about their social view, and so I think that's maybe the realm in which women value looks. And then there's also a personal aspect to it of them finding the man attractive or not, and that's okay. That's I get that in terms of women not wanting to date a man that they don't find attractive. I get that. I'm not saying that women have to date men that they don't find attractive. But I do think that women have to accept the fact that if you want to be approached by men, you're going to have to deal with the reality of being attractive or being approached by men that you find both attractive and unattractive. And that those unattractive men don't want to put a hood over your head, throw you in the back of a van, and take you home, right? It's not his intention when an unattractive guy comes up to you. When an unattractive guy comes up to you, his intention is maybe it's kind of creepy. Maybe he just wants to hook up with you or whatever. But for the most part, the intention is, whoa, that chick's hot. I should talk to her, right? And look, I get the concerns, right? The concerns that women have for their physical safety and those things. I understand that. But once again, we're going back to the whole false uh, accusations, allegations thing. We're going back to that where it's that's just going to be a part of life sometimes, right? The idea that as a man you're going to get falsely accused of, harassment or assault, that's just going to be part of your life, and it just is what it is. It doesn't. You will not be able to function as a human being if you can't accept that fact, right? And the same goes for women. And now the women, it's a little bit more extreme than a false allegation or whatever, but it's still just a part of life that you're going to have to accept, right? It's like, if you want to be 100% safe from those things, don't ever leave your house and don't ever interact with anyone ever, right? That's what you're going to have to do to avoid those things. And even then, it still might happen, right? And so I understand it. But I do think it's a little bit ridiculous. Not not being scared of, assault or harassment or being kidnapped or whatever. I understand that. But the idea that every man who approaches you, or specifically every unattractive man that approaches you, is going in with the intent to do that, it's a ridiculous thought to have, right? Just as it is to have the thought that um if you are a man and you approach a woman, you're going to be in a jail cell in a week, right? If you're as ugly as I am, then yeah, maybe, right? I'm a pretty ugly person, but if you're like an average dude, you're you're maybe not going to be necessarily fine, but you're gonna you're not gonna have to deal with what I'm gonna have to deal with. Okay, I'll just say that much. I'll just say that much. And so I think it's just a big aspect of it that I think putting it in that way might help women understand it a little bit better, right? It's not the idea that I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to get shanked because I got falsely accused of something. It's the idea that socially my life is going to be significantly harder and that I'm going to be viewed as something that I find to be disgusting, right? As a creepy guy. Um I think maybe that puts it in a way that's maybe more understandable for women, right? Because it's kind of how they operate. They're big on the social perception of themselves. And so are men, right? Um, I think we're more alike than some people want to admit, but I, I do think that women are a little bit more socially oriented. And so I think putting it in that way, and no woman is listening to this, and that's okay. And probably no person at this point is listening to this, and that's also okay. But if there are any women that are kind of confused or perplexed about the situation or who think the the false allegations thing is kind of ridiculous. I agree with you on that. It it's more so that than it is the other thing. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which ties back with what I was just saying, is I think for so long in this country, women were not taken seriously. I that sounds like a performative male matcha drinking Claro listening thing to say, which I do listen to Claro. She was my top artist on Spotify. I fucking love Claro. But it sounds like that to say, but it's true, right? For a good 200 years there probably, the opinions and the ideas and the perspectives of women were kind of completely disregarded. And I think because of that now we're kind of dealing with um an over endorsement of all thoughts from women, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is because people don't want to go back to that kind of Stone Age, whatever you want to call it, patriarchy, where the ideas and thoughts of women and the perspectives that women bring aren't taken seriously, because people so strongly do not want to go back to that, they they overcompensate by I don't know exactly how to put it, by taking every idea that women put out there as completely serious, and also by taking them a lot more seriously than they would the same ideas if a man put them out there, right? And I don't think this is universally true, but I think especially among young people, and especially among young people on social media, that is true, right? Maybe not in the office or in the medical field or whatever, but I do think in the world of young people on social media and maybe even older people, I don't know, I just don't have that perspective. Um, I think it's very true that the ideas of women are taken a lot more seriously and accepted more, right? Because people generally, right, generally do not want to go back to a time where women weren't listened to about anything, right? And so they kind of are overcorrecting and taking 100% of the ideas that they hear from women as completely serious, and even more serious than they would the ideas of men. And once again, that's not to say that we shouldn't take the ideas of all women 100% serious, but they should be viewed as the same as the ideas of a man, where it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let's think about this. Let's talk it out a little bit and let's explore it and try to see if what you're saying, A, makes sense and B, is in any way practical, right? Um, and I think that's one of the big reasons why there's this whole epidemic, fucking whatever you want to call it. I think the word epidemic is so corny and overused, but whatever you want to call it, this big issue that's popping up, I think that's another one of the very big reasons behind it is the simple fact that when it comes to the social treatment of women, especially, right? Like I was saying, young on social media, women's ideas are taken more seriously, but when it comes to the treatment of women, especially in a sexual sense, those ideas are taken fully seriously, like to the extreme as law. essentially, right? And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this big problem here, right? And it's a problem that many people experience and deal with and all that stuff. And yeah, I think part of that issue stems from that simple fact. And I get it. We got to listen to women, but we should listen to women the same way that we listen to men, right? And I understand why we especially want to listen to women when it comes to the way they're treated in a sexual sense, right? Because once again, for many, many years, women were mistreated sexually, right? Maybe not necessarily what you're thinking, but in a lot of ways they were. And that's the truth. I know there's just people who want to deny that stuff, and they just want to deny very obvious true things because people they don't like are saying it. I think that's a big thing, but it's not really what we're talking about here. But I do think that's a big thing, and so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Um, and I think that was really like the main thought that I had about it. And the other thing I guess that I wanted to emphasize was it harkens back to the whole you're just gonna have to accept it. You're just gonna have to accept that unattractive men are gonna approach you if you want men to approach you, right? Because it, if you only want attractive men to approach you, right, then those men have to deem themselves as attractive, right? Which in some cases they're correct that they're attractive or whatever, but I think the default mode for so many young men is that, well, I'm not attractive, right? If I'm not blatantly, obviously an incredibly attractive man, then I'm just not even going to bother, right? Because I don't want to be viewed as a creep socially. I think that's, even if you're a woman and you try to, I guess, compromise or whatever by saying, well, I only want attractive men to approach me, it's like, well, okay, I don't look like fucking Chris Hemsworth, right? An average guy who looks at himself in the mirror is going to be like, well, I don't look like fucking Chris Hemsworth, so I'm not even going to bother with that, right? I'm not going to bother approaching these women because, A, it's probably going to be a waste of time, right? And if you're at a bar or a club or some other social setting like that, it's going to be a waste of money as well. And B, it's going to be, it, I could be construed as creepy for doing this. And like I said, that's a big one that I think most people, but especially men, don't want to be viewed as. Um, so yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say about this one. I came into this being like it's only going to be 30 minutes long, and I don't know, I just didn't really. I guess I do have shit to do. I do have a fucking calculus final on Monday, but I'm not too worried about that. I have some shit to write, but I'm also not too worried about that either. And so, I don't know. I was just having all these thoughts, and that's kind of what this entire thing is, right? It's what this entire podcast is just me coming on here and giving my dumb thoughts about things and just trying to get them out of my head, which there's already not a lot in my head. So to be getting these ideas out of my head is pretty fucking empty by now. Um, but I don't know, man. Like, I watch these videos, and obviously, on social media, the videos you're gonna get are the videos that they think you're gonna view. So I must have done something right to make, TikTok and Instagram and whatever think that I want to watch these videos, but it's I don't know. I just feel like they're just so unbalanced and so emotional, and especially the comments are so ridiculous and stuff like that. And I get it. It's the internet. It's not real or whatever. But I do think that so much of our lives has become the internet that it definitely starts to bleed into your life in a not insignificant way, if that makes sense. So, I guess ultimately the reality of the situation is it's probably not going to change, right? And it's especially not going to change because a dude with a podcast who has like 3 people who listen to it, it's not going to change because I said something. But so yeah, the conclusion I come to, it fucking looks Max, dude. Get 80,000 plastic surgeries and get like the limb lengthening surgery and all that shit, and then you'll be okay. Okay. All right. Just a short little thing I wanted to do because I was just like, I was banging my head against the wall watching these videos, and obviously I was being an emotional pussy about it too. And then I realized I was being an emotional pussy, and so I kind of thought about it a little bit more rationally. And I don't know if even one person who harbors those ideas um can maybe listen to this and I don't take anything away from it, then that's cool. If not, it's also cool. If what I said sounded like complete nonsense for 30 minutes, that's okay. Um it's the truth. It's the truth. It is uh non-understandable nonsense, so I get it. But I hope everyone listening to this has a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life. Um and I'll see you guys on I guess I'll put this out on Saturday, so the next episode will be Monday. Pretty decent episode. Not great, not horrible. I tried a new thing again. I've just been trying new shit. I guess this is an example of that. Just trying new shit. I'm not trying everything new, but I'm just trying new shit just to see what's up. So hope you guys have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Ping.